So yeah, could you tell us? We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but could you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about yourself and yeah, what you've been going through until now?
Yeah, sure. So, I right now I'm moving towards or about to start a position at this company, Blue Origin, which is, for those that don't know it, it's essentially Jeff Bezos's SpaceX, right? So it's a company it's a commercial company that's looking at I guess commercial company is redundant. It's a company that's looking at commercializing space, right? So it's a launch provider at the moment, but it's looking at, okay, well, once we get into space, what other things are we going to do out there? How are we going to profit? Um, and I'm joining Blue Origin in November as the official title is Habitat Distributed Systems Engineer, and that's a long way of saying space architect plus some engineering stuff. Um, and uh, that begs the question: what is space architecture? And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's creating habitats for humans in space. The way I arrived at this was, I mean, I went to Rhode Island School of Design, graduated in 2014, went for architecture, and I worked as an architect in Seattle for about 3 years at this firm called SKB Architects, where I learned how to be a professional, learn how to write emails properly, learn how to speak with contractors properly, and learn some essential aspects of architecture. I mean, architecture school touches on how to think and how to conceptualize form, um, how to uh, keep a design consistent. Um, but working as an architect taught me how to detail those things into reality, and really the devil's in the detail. So you can have the most beautiful form, but if your detail is no good, then the architecture itself is going to feel okay, lackluster. You're going to feel like something's missing. So that was a great time, and the my bosses there, the principals of the firm, were super accommodating. They taught me a lot. But in that time, I still felt like I was missing something. I wasn't having an impact on humanity that I wanted to, and I was missing information. I was missing the ability to enact those kind of ambitious goals. Um, and one of those ambitious goals was kind of looking at the building momentum of this second space age and wanting to be a part of it. So I thought, maybe I should learn some engineering to kind of augment my design background. And so after about 3 years in the architecture and construction industry, I pulled out and put myself back in school for mechanical engineering at the University of Washington. Um, so there was actually 1 year in there where I was at this place called the North Seattle College, or the North Seattle Community College. They've been trying to rebrand themselves out of being a community college, but that's what they are. They shouldn't hide it. It's a
Yeah,
good thing.
community colleges are awesome too.
It was an essential stepping stone for me. Like I would not have been able to make it without them. So yeah, I think that was a great part, and I'm just now kind of peeling out of that phase. So that took about 2.5, 3 years to bring in that portion of my education. And in that time, worked on some really interesting projects. Had a lot of fun. We were starting to talk about that competition in the desert. There are a few other things worked on, like this thing that we call the photobioreactor to help capture carbon dioxide,
Mm.
and a few other things. So yeah, that's I guess the somewhat long version.
Yeah,
Went on
no,
a few
no, no.
tangents there, but
That's a good little chunk, so people can get some idea of why we're talking to you. So yeah, I have a few questions based on that. But Fedor, do you have anything you want to ask first?
Very funny question, because it's like it feels very professional. The aura is full of, just details and stuff. So I just imagine an engineer in space. Yo, dude, is there any chance that we're gonna build an air tube like in Futurama that gonna, transfer us to Mars or something?
like a space elevator sort of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, that's fine. So definitely not an air tube that will send us to Mars. because the distance
Too
between
far, yeah.
Earth and Mars is always changing, right? I mean, not only is it too far, but our orbits around the sun are going to be different. So there are moments in our orbits where we're on opposite sides of the sun.
Mhm.
And unless you have like an insanely flexible air tube that you can direct around the sun so it doesn't get burned, uh, so that one might be a little difficult.
I
Um,
expect Trump has one,
yeah, maybe, maybe. Um,
But
but
yeah, Ken.
like the space elevator is something that people have been talking about for a while. It comes up often in like science fiction, um, and it seems like there are a lot of good things going for it, right? In that it seems like from the calculations that people have done, I haven't really looked that much into it, but it would make launching things into orbit much cheaper,
Mm.
which is great because that's kind of the main barrier to entry. So the effort right now that SpaceX and Blue Origin is really focusing on is bringing launch costs down. Um,
Mhm.
so space elevators can do that dramatically. However, there aren't any materials that we know of that would be able to provide that kind of structure. Um,
Mhm.
if you tried to build it from the ground up, I don't know what altitude this would happen, but there reaches a point where, um, like if you build it out of steel, the steel itself just won't be able to support
Yeah.
its own strength, let alone like a thing that's traveling up it. And so at least not a steel like rod, right? So you would have to then change the diameter of it, and that starts to bring in some really weird questions about how you have a thing traveling up and down this thing that has some
Yeah.
varying diameter. And then there's the talk of using like carbon nanotubes or carbon fiber. Uh, so carbon fiber is obviously a material that exists right now that people use all the time. Carbon nanotubes, not so much, not in like mass manufacturing, or not in like large construction projects like that. And yeah, it just it seems like there would problems would still persist there. The most promising thing that I had heard, and again, like I've only read about these things. I haven't really dived into exactly what or why. And so my knowledge on this is limited and maybe saying a few things incorrectly. But uh, an idea would be to have some massive object, right? Just something that has a good amount of mass in orbit from the Earth, and to have the space elevator tethered between the Earth and this object,
Mhm.
and that object provides the necessary tension. So instead of having a thing built up into space and it experiencing compression all the time, all of a sudden you have this thing that's under tension. And there are actually a lot of materials that function better under tension than under compression. And so
I see.
potentially that can like change some of the structural requirements, but no one has really pushed that far on it, as far as I can tell. Some interesting papers and thought exercises, but I don't think that there are any serious commercial ventures
A
in it.
thought exercise. Brilliant answer, because it's kind of reflect your previous answer on your profession, like being an architect and how everything is connected, detailed, and could be a funny and ridiculous question, but you'll be able to give us such a profound answer. And you got dude, if I was designated, I would be like, yo, what's the budget, man? I can give you all the money, no problem. Because it feels like,
That's
yeah,
great. Well,
you're
then
you
we got to get you some money, man.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.